Rudy was born in, I believe, 1928. So you can do the math. I'm not good at that, but he's around, would have been around 95, 6, 96 this year. Um, it's hard to believe in my mind that he's been absent physically for half a century because he's so present. And presence is such a powerful force. And it's not just Rudy who maintains presence. Every one of you is a presence. And every one of you, to the degree that you have connected to the world, to others, have a presence that will continue in the world. The world is benefited by your presence. And I'm always amazed because people think presence is a short-term bodily encased experience, but it's not. Everything you do in the world, everything you are in the world exists, it continues, it influences. Excuse me. And the more you can let go of your personality and find your way to the person, which is the thing that pre-exists the behaviors and the mind experiences, excuse me, the more your presence finds its way to filter into the world. And every one of you, because I've sat with you for many of you for years, our presence, a presence and a gift. And you don't have any idea how much that gift radiates out into the universe, but it does. And if you want to see a presence that radiates beyond most people's capacity, it's Rudy. And Rudy, there's a story there, but the story seems to me insignificant. It's the reality of a person who found their way into this core drive to touch self, to be himself, to touch the self, to be able to know and understand the work involved, and then want to share that with everyone. You know, I can't fully embody or understand what the drive was, why it was so dynamic and potent, but he was here to share. He really was. He was here to share a teaching that is, in my experience, because I studied with him over 50 years, like almost close to 60 years, it's a living thing. It's not a memory, it's not a thought, it's not an idea, it's not something that was, it's something that is. How does that happen? That's why I talk about presence, because it is a surviving quality. It absolutely dominates what was the journey you were on and leaves it behind in some whatever way you choose to have left it behind. It will all be a result of your moments of kindness and moments perhaps of non-kindness, but it's never too late at any moment to transition all of your persona, if you will, your personality into a embodiment of kindness. And in the end, that can be the gift that you leave. Rudy's gift was not just kindness because it was absolutely there in the core of his being. It was sharing, it was giving. Blanche and I had a ride with Rudy that was just, we were just two people. And he went out of his way. He threw a wedding for us. He found an apartment for us. He made it possible for us to have some extraordinary artwork in our homes. He gave and gave and gave, and we were just two people. I find out from everyone I talk to how many people he was generous to. I mean, beyond, and it's like you always think, well, he was really kind to me, and you take that as something special. This man was beyond kind and generous to masses of people. So when Rudy's teacher, Muktananda, came to America in whatever year that was, 70-ish, um, it was a big deal because his teacher seemed to me to be somebody who must have some grand ability beyond Rudy's to teach us and give us. And it felt like it was important to document his visit to this Western culture. And Rudy was going way out of his way to make this a real celebration and a gift, and trying to accommodate his teacher to the extent that he bought an entire hotel in upstate New York and transformed it in Big Indian into a center or an ashram to welcome his teacher. Not many people do that. And I was with him the day he found Big Indian. Blanche and I drove up. I don't know how we became part of that small caravan, but I watched Rudy walk around this property, his belly overflowing with like pride that he had been able, through life's currents, to manifest a space like this where his teacher could be embraced. And his teacher arrived, and I wanted, as a burgeoning filmmaker, to document it in some way, but I had no way to do that. So I asked, I don't know who I asked. I think I was talking to someone named Patty Pardini, the wife then of Earl Pardini. And she heard my desire, and she went to her dad and came back to me with a check for $500, which was a lot of money at that moment in time. And I said, I'm going to make a movie if Rudy would approve, and he did, of Muktananda's journey here. In my mind, it was a document about a teacher named Muktananda, but in the end, it's a movie about Rudy. And the joy that I have of knowing that somehow these alignments took place to allow this movie to get made as a document of one of the most amazing people who ever lived. And I'm not talking about Muktananda. I'm talking about Rudy. Rudy so outshone Muktananda in my eyes. There's a whole story there, and I won't bother you with the dynamics of it. But the thing Muktananda taught me was I had a great teacher, and it was Rudy. And the thing that really is amplifying that is that 50 years after his passing, Rudy is vibrantly active in my inner life. You can give it the name Rudy. You can also call it something that transcends Rudy, because it's so forceful, powerful, simple, delicate, amazing. And it's arriving every single time I ask for it to come. And especially when I sit with you, because it's not Bruce teaching this class. In a way, I would say it's Rudy, but it's not even Rudy. It's the doorway to what Rudy was sort of opening for all of us. And it comes through, and it teaches, and it is extraordinary. In the old days, when I lived in California, on Rudy's birthday and Rudy's Samadhi, we would gather at our house, and we would have a dinner, and people would come from all over LA, and we would have a class like we just had, and then I would talk for a few minutes. Believe me, I could actually just talk for a few minutes. And then I would turn on a movie of Rudy that was compiled after all these years of shooting. It just sat there for decades until Bob Sink, who's here with us today, Bob Sink put it together as a film. Without Bob, this movie would not be available, and it is very available as a full feature, not a feature, but a full film. And there are lots of segments that are online that Bob made available. But what we're going to see in a few seconds or minutes is a compilation that Bob did recently that is hard to describe other than it is Rudy. If you want to feel something that's not driven by story, but is just a presence that is like extraordinary to see it unfold. For those of us who were there, it's a memorial and a memory that is so overwhelmingly beautiful. But for those who weren't there, and for those of you who've never seen Rudy, this is not the story version. It's just Rudy. It's just Rudy. So I want to show it to you now.
To open to God, you have to first open to life. You have to live, you have to love, you have to enjoy and share. And this thing opens one layer on the other. You can't open to God unless you have been responsible and disciplined in your life. Because one thing builds on the other. Spirituality is based on the value that you express successfully in the physical world. And you start doing that by seeing in other people God, by opening and sharing and being responsible and serving. And if you don't have the capacity, fake it. Do until you get used to doing, until you get rid of the paralysis in your heart and your hand, and you begin to feel maybe 6 months later that the doing has given you a reward. You have to do to prime a pump. You have to put your heart and soul to prime a spiritual being. And it has to cost you. And it's unbelievable to live it. It is dramatic, it is wonderful, it's deeply satisfying, and you really have a great deal of satisfaction because you have something to share. Well, to have a spiritual life, you have to share that. And a lot of you are trying to share, like a piece of leftover pizza pie. It's cold and it's tasteless at this point. You work, you make something delicious in yourself, you have something which can attract something wonderful. You will have a wonderful life if you work. But the other way, it becomes something which you hardly want. How do you expect to share it with anybody else? But you grow by nourishing, by serving, because if you love God, you're a servant to man, But you have to be open before you can get this to give. So until you have a sense of humanity and a sense of giving and a sense of responsibility and a sense of love, it's a question of doing. It's all stepping stones. But you have to start stepping, not sitting there and blending in with the rock and nobody knows which is which anymore. You need love, you need action, you need movement. It's very difficult, for anyone to support a spiritual life unless their heart is open to themselves. And we sit down and we try to meditate, we do all of these things. But if inside we really hate ourselves, it's impossible. You have to really work and really feel your heart open in your wish to grow. You have to really take a breath. You have to really concentrate and feel this heart chakra open, that it can receive. What good is it pouring energy on something which is closed, something which is rejecting? And that's why the wish, to grow, the deep wish to open to God is always the first thing. And it means that we are beginning to receive something, so we find ourselves acceptable because we're willing to reach for a more positive aspect of energy. We then accept ourselves. If you really love, you grow, and this is the secret of Ali Baba, or open sesame. This open sesame is you're emitting in you from yourself love that you can look and find in a human being, in every human being, this beauty which is there, and that beauty is their soul force and all this stuff. But you really look and you try to see the beauty in that person. And you slowly, reaching with your energy, will come to it. And this thing will open, and you will take care of your karma in that situation. Because you have taken out the content, just like you take and open an oyster. And it really is the joy that comes from maturity, from taking in enough spiritual force, which is all matter, and serving every situation, because when you give somebody, they open, and then you get, And unless you give love and you give consciousness to a person and to a situation, this person and the situation will not open to you. And nothing works as well as digging in somebody else to give them the thing that you can't find in you. You find it in them, and it'll automatically open the thing in you. Loving somebody who hasn't been loved, and really loving them, then they begin to love you. It's like striking water there, and then it flows to you, and it will really do for you. I worked for years loving people, and then I learned to love myself. if you want to have a spiritual life and you really want to reach an ultimate, the only person you're attached to is God. A teacher is only that which removes shit and all kinds of other things in you on this life to make room for your contact with God. So you disgorge, in your spiritual life, and somebody who comes to teach you is to fill you and nourish you to make you strong enough that you can really open to this thing that is higher than any person. And you are not to be stuffed by a teacher except on a temporary basis, so that you can, in a sense, surrender that. So the thing of being attached to this saint or that Swami or Jesus Christ or anybody else, but to be filled with anything less than God is a limitation. Any attachment you have is to fulfill you, to really nourish you, so that you eventually can surrender it and go up. Not to cement you on a level, but to give you the energy to detach from it, to be free of it. But spiritual work is very strong work. It's very powerful work. And you get strong doing it. You get very strong doing it. It is not for lightweights. And you're a lightweight, you start opening, you become a heavyweight. But it's not a thinking thing, it's a doing thing. It's a surrendering and accepting thing. And finally this thing turns around. It takes years and years and years and years. You carry the rock and you chip the rock and hit your head with the rock and you sit down with the rock and you wake up with the rock. But if you make a commitment and you say you want to grow, this is the only thing that matters to you, eventually this whole rock will be absorbed in you, and then you'll have in you this additional strength. I mean, how can a human being, expect a spiritual life, and enlightenment? It's almost impossible. We are without so much development, and yet we sit down and we say, I am working for enlightenment. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. If you had to put it on a scale, it would weigh minus 50,000 pounds, And yet, with all of this, it's possible. And it's possible because there is one spiritual law which qualifies all of us, and that is God loves fools and idiots. That's the only real law that allows, people to qualify for a spiritual life. Not because of the extraordinary thing that they are, but because of the lack in them. Because if you were a complete human being, there would be no room in you for this force to enter. It only enters in the nothingness of us. And because of what we are not, we qualify. And the only enemy that we have is our ego. This thing which demands, this thing that cannot surrender. Because with all of our lacks, And the more lacks we have, we become more qualified, not less qualified. The thing that's remarkable is that everything is 180 degrees different, you know, than what it appears. And the more you've been under, the less obviously you seem to qualify, the more you really do. The things which close you to yourself, the things that you build your tensions around, the things that you find objectionable that you can't admit to, these are your real treasures. That you can consciously surrender them and you can consciously transcend them, that you can change patterns, you can really open in spite of knowing that you do not qualify under any other law, you know, makes you potentially a great spiritual human being. Everything that comes spiritually comes in its own time, layer by layer, as it wants to show itself. You cannot jump ahead, you know, and put something in out of order because it will not be supported on both sides by the needed chemistry, you know, by the needed organic matter which can support it. And you have to want that. You have to want everything. You have to want to grow completely. There is no halfway growing. There is no halfway enlightenment. Either you're working for an entire enlightenment or you're going to get a neon sign that flashes God, God, God. But it does not have in it that which can serve and nourish, you know, and that which can give the joy and that which can give the capacity to sustain.
Let me just say that those of you who are on the email list, this video is available to you. Just play on your own. Those of you who are not on the email list, you can write to me, brucejoelrubin@gmail.com, and I will forward you the link. And then you can have it at home on your own. This is a happy day to remember Rudy. It's 4 days after his birthday, but every day in a way is his birthday. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for showing up today. I want you to know that your presence is what makes this happen. I say it week by week, but something wants to hug you. That's all I can tell you. I happen to be the vehicle through which some of that hug comes through, but it is something much greater than this person. So know you're loved deeply, profoundly, and that many of the sort of the gifts being brought into the present tense are really Rudy given. They really come from Rudy and Swami Nityananda, who was his first opening to this, you know, and there's a lineage that goes back and it absolutely serves us. So thank you guys for still digging in. I mean, this is a long time after the fact, and I would ask you to continue to be receptors and channels for this energy, which means, you know, one, you can teach it if you want to teach it. We can talk about that, but more importantly, be that energy, be the love, be the goodness, be the kindness that the world needs right now. I would say more than ever, certainly more than ever in our time. And we need you. We need you. And you are, every one of you. If you're here now, you are available. You are there to, if nothing else, be good people in the world. And if you want to do more than that, reach out, hug, love, energize. Beautiful, beautiful. Just stay active, stay kind, be available, and know that, as Rudy said in this, you're loved, and it's because you're stupid and because you're, because we're not loved because we're perfect. We're loved because of our imperfections. So don't walk around trying to be a perfect person. Just try to be connected and try to be a good person. Uh, I'll ask for questions. Does anybody at this moment in time have questions? This has gone on forever. Do I see a hand? I don't know that I do. I have two screens here, so 1 second. Anybody on this screen with a question? Nope. Anybody here with a question? Whoops. Okay. Eric, I see you. Eric, I don't hear you, so that question will not come through. You have to
You,
unmute
you
yourself.
may have, hi.
Okay.
You may have talked about this before. So my family got COVID probably through Phineas's class. We're okay. Everything's cool. Took like 5 or 6 days for me. There's a lingering effect that I never had before, and I'm feeling it spiritually and energetically in a way that I never felt it before. Probably the third time I've got it. First 2 times, shed it very quickly. This time no fever, no cough, nothing, but like a lingering. Any thoughts on the spiritual gripping nature of this thing and how to encounter it best?
I'm not sure I would use the word spiritual, but I would definitely use the word um, universal. It's had a big impact on the human species. It is something we have shared. It's changed the dynamic of the world that we're all living in. And what its nature is, I don't know. I can go into paranoid theories about, these artificial forces released into the atmosphere. But, it's all one thing. It's all one whole. And we have all been impacted by this for the last 4 years. It will continue for a while longer. It's part of the human experience that these forces come into human life and change the planetary relationship of mankind to the world. And so, yes, you've been impacted, and yes, you have sort of returned in some deeper way to your spiritual practice, very possibly because of this communion with the whole, with the larger whole. So don't try to get into diagnosing why and how and all of that. Just know that you are feeling something that deepens your work, and that's a gift. So whether it be COVID, whether it be, tripping on a sidewalk, whatever it may be, the universe is knocking at the door. It always knocks at the door. Rarely do we open it. You can open it, and this sounds like you're doing that. So that's a good work. Anybody else? Okay, all my brilliant people who I love. Okay, thank you guys for coming. As always, I truly, truly am grateful. And Jordy, I don't see you, but I hope you feel better. I truly hope you feel better. And I send. He's over there somewhere. I send love to you all. And next week's a West Coast class, but you guys are always welcome to join in. It's 11 o'clock Eastern Standard. Just turn it on. Love to you all.